Okay, here we are again. Apologies about this, and we'll try to fix that in the next session. So I think that everybody is rejoining the session, and so yes, as we said, we love if Ras Shango Bako give an eye some insight about the secretariat and the history.
Yes.
Greetings, Ras. Anytime we are ready.
My Lord, give thanks. The words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable. Rastafari. Great to see such ones and ones who have met over the times, and great to see I and I coming together on this crucial matter at this crucial time. Give thanks to the elder, Rastabulani, for his very assertive presentation, and the GRS, Global Rastafari Secretariat, as he said in the introduction, was motivated by the elders at the conference in Jamaica in 1983 as one of the main resolutions that came out of that great conference, that I and I should set up a global Rastafari Secretariat, 1983. It was not until the year 2013 or 2014 that a group of I and I came together and said, this has been pending for too long. It is time to take up this agenda and make it real. Because the history of Rastafari has moved from the 1930s, and even before the 1930s, there were rumblings of Ethiopianism moving through the African descendant world, where ones like Reverend Fitz Ballantyne and Ashley I. Rogers wrote pamphlets and books which were banned in the Caribbean at that time, but which were forerunners of the gospelers, such as Howell, the great pioneer of Rastafari, Hines, etc., who spoke of the divinity of Imperial Majesty, Rastafari. And we can trace the growth of the movement from that time, from the 30s to the 40s, the Youth Black Faith, to the 50s, 58 with Prince Emmanuel setting up the EABIC, to the 60s when Gadman set up the 12 tribes, etc., the 70s, etc., the 80s when our sisters came in to their full strength and gave the movement another uplift, until the 90s when international gatherings were not only in the Caribbean or Toronto, but spread to Ethiopia itself. In 2017, we had that great All Africa Rastafari gathering, where also we spoke of the need for a global Rastafari Secretariat. A group of I and I presented the idea, or represented the idea of the Secretariat at Pitford in Montego Bay in 2016, on the 50th anniversary of His Imperial Majesty in the Caribbean. Again, it was well received and once contributed to the dialogue, the reasoning, the debate around the Global Rastafari Secretariat, which was seen as something that was necessary now that I and I had reached a level of maturity and spread worldwide, so that events such as what Ras Jabulani spoke of, we can have an immediate and concerted collective response to situations regarding ganja, or as it happens in Ghana right now, youths are prevented from going to Achimota school in Ghana. We can have a coordinated response if we have a global secretariat that can deal with these matters from the highest level and immediately have a response to them to show that I and I are a nation, a people not to be taken lightly, but one that will respond to any infringement of our human rights at this time. And I think that is what is needed from a global Rastafari Secretariat. One that can monitor events as they happen, things that come into being that affect our movement. Everything affects us. And also project a future where we can continue to influence the world population. Remember, our Father is the rightful ruler of the earth, not just of Africa, but of the whole world. And therefore, the whole world. I hear the echo coming to me. Yes. And we have to be strong and not fear the enemies, the workers of evil, the workers of Babylon, that in this time are rising up and trying to change our very nature as human beings, changing us from I, stewards of this Garden of Eden, which His Majesty has given us, stewardship of moral beings, to change the times into peace and love, equal rights and justice. These are the head of all nations' agendas at this time, so that we have a world that is not at war. We have individuals who are not at war. We are not at war with the earth. We are the eco-warriors. We came out to fight for Mother Earth, our mother. Therefore, our womanhood has always been inspiring unto us and are part of our global Rastafari Secretariat and our determination to improve the quality of our communities across the earth, because there is no nation in civilization today that is without its community of Rastafari. We need a global secretariat. So this presentation was made to the All Africa Rastafari Gathering in 2017. It was well received, and we showed exactly what we had to do in the immediate future to go through with it, to set up a bank account, to elect representatives from different parts of Earth, perhaps 15, as many as 15 or 17 from the Caribbean, with Jamaica as predominant, from the Eastern Caribbean, from the Americas, North, Central, and South, from UK and Europe, from Africa, certainly 5 representatives at least, from Asia, from Japan, from Australasia. All parts of Earth would contribute to a centralized body, centralized and organized as a Rastafarian secretariat, dealing with the matters of administration and government of the people of Rastafari, the nation of Rastafari, and therefore impacting on world events as we move towards a future which His Majesty has disposed in our keep. It is up to I to be strong, to be courageous, and not to fear the enemies of life, because we are confident of the victory of good over evil. So at this time where there's a global pandemic and on all sides, ones are worried about the future of life itself on this planet, Rastafari, a new creation, needs to stand firm and to spread its message among Earth's people, wherever we are, and wherever people are in the world who are motivated by Rastafari, who are influenced by Rastafari, who are inspired by our life, our way of life, our liberty, to give them the courage to withstand the rigors of this time, the stresses of this time, and to overcome them, because this is an opportunity for I, not a time of hiding. We don't hide in lockdown, we agitate. We make use of the time and go into ourselves and into each other. There has been more rapport between us as leaders of the movement and members of the faith than before there was a lockdown and a pandemic, because we know that the time is short for I to change things, to reset the new world agenda and to make it in favor of those who have been left out of things, those on the ground who we represent, the 99% of Earth's inhabitants who have been oppressed, just as I and I have come out of slavery and colonialism and fought and overcome these things, to now link with each other across continents, across from the CRO of the Caribbean to the RCC of Africa, so that we learn from each other, we respect each other, we see each other organizing and gaining competence and dealing with the so-called governments in the nations in which we are placed. We ourselves know ourselves as a nation among nations. And this is what is required from us, to create in reality that administrative perspective that puts us in the light of nations, to say that I and I are here. This is what I and I are about. Let the youths know about the history of Rastafari. Let Rastafari be moved from impoverished situations where they are in the world, so that I and I can galvanize funds, can galvanize change, can change our situation, can become motivated to raise ourselves up to the level where we should be, on par with other nations who have set their agendas for themselves. So it is good. I give thanks to Ras Flacco and to all who are gathered here to debate, to reason. As he said, reasoning has always been our way of working things out. Reasoning is against warfare. We don't take up arms against each other. We reason among each other towards an appropriate outcome of our reasoning, because that is what humanity is about. And that is what Babylon has forbidden. It has tried to oppress reasoning, to use force rather than rationality to justify itself, to make matters better for mankind, for humanity. And I cannot do this. And therefore the time has come now, this crucial time. They say this is a time of reset. Let us reset the agenda, or continue to reset. This is not a new time. From 1930s right up until now, we have been influencing world policy. We have been influencing it through our reasoning, through our music, through our travel, through repatriation, through everything that we have done. We have made those who were oppressed see light, see that it is possible to overcome. It is possible to be part of a mature human existence, to work with ones towards the betterment of all, not as egotists, not as individuals who want to be at the head of things, thinking that leadership is having a whip to oppress others, as His Majesty says. It is service. The Global Rastafari Secretariat will be a service to the Rastafari movement, to improve the situation of Rastafari in every nation, to bring to bear the thoughts of Rastafari, the history of Rastafari, to celebrate His Imperial Majesty and Empress Menen in all lands, in all places, to further the agenda of Rastafari, equal rights and justice, peace on earth. These are not too big for I and I to do. We may be small, but we well talawa. We are able to do this through the guidance of His Imperial Majesty. We can do all things. So from 1983, for 33 years and more, the idea of a global Rastafari Secretariat was put on the back burner while we tried to sort out ourselves or mansions or organizations, etc. It has risen up again, and we have PowerPoint presentations. We have structural programs as to how it can be rolled out. We have ideas of who the elected members of the leading central body should be, what should be their qualifications, that they have served the community, that they are respected, that they are able, their track record is one of good things in the Rastafari community, and they can come together without apology from all communities across the earth to form a strong administrative body a strong fundraising executive. Ras Jabulani spoke of the sacred herb, which has now become so common on earth that it has been removed from being a substance that is barred. It is a substance which we have been associated with. So we too will benefit from it not being prohibited at this time. As a matter of fact, we intend to benefit from it being a financial support for us to raise up ourselves, rather than something that only those big businessmen and businesswomen will have. And therefore, there's work to be done. And meetings such as this, even by Zoom, by whatever way, by reasoning across the earth, will help us to bring our minds together, because what we think in isolation, others also think in isolation. Rastafari is one mind, one Jah, one Africa, one God, one destiny. Let us remember this. Let us realize this. Because when we spoke of the Global Rastafari Secretariat, we also said this was not our idea of a new house or a new thought or a new thing. It was thought of by the elders many years before. And it is in the hearts of each and every one of us that this should happen. It is not a hidden thing. It is what is necessary. It is part of our evolution that we become a worldwide force, which we have been from the beginning, but now practically, no longer virtually, but in reality, setting up, as someone said, a United Nations. Remember, His Imperial Majesty was both a member of the League of Nations and of those who drafted the United Nations. Rastafari, his sons and daughters, are a United Nations across the world. I and I are at the root of all struggling people in all places, of all oppressed people in all places. And I must take up this mantle as others have done. There's a program for reforming the United Nations now, you know, and that affects us in every place. That I and I are the reformation, whether we do it globally by challenging the executive so-called body of the United Nations, the 5 nations that can veto every proposition that is put, so that a more holistic way is moved, and that one can listen to the impact of events in all parts of the world without it being stopped by these 5 who will block anything that is not in their own interests. Every small nation, as His Imperial Majesty said in 1936, when he stood up before the League in Geneva, is represented, not just Ethiopia, which was being oppressed by a power such as Italy, but every small nation that is being imposed upon by a so-called bigger nation. That is the whole big manism that Babylon has run the earth with from that time. We say away with it. We say down with Babylon. We say fire for Babylon. We say this is a new time. This is a new order. This is something new that we are upon the earth. We will resurrect original man. His Imperial Majesty and Empress Menen said, let us make man in our image, you know? And here we are in the image of the sons and daughters of the Most High. Therefore, there's nothing too much for us to do. No obstacle that is too hard for us to overcome. No time, no evil that is beyond reversal. I and I can do it. And I have a chance to do it. And I am pleased to be invited to speak, perhaps generally, rather than definitively, of this Rastafari Global Secretariat, because perhaps others have it in mind as well. If this is the right thing to work, how it should work, why it should already be working, and what has the interim committee that was in Jamaica, made up of 7. Sister Anita Robinson is no longer with us. She passed on in 2017 after the coming together of Hydran from Barbados, Brother Steve Asher, Ras Jabulani, Ravi Shilliam, Ras Tafari, Ras Ray, myself, Ras Flacco as well. You know, the interim committee needs to move from being interim to being permanent. It needs new members. It needs fresh ideas. It needs new energy to manifest itself and to bring this thought process into reality. It is not a dream. Rastafari, give thanks.
Give thanks, Ras Shango. Give thanks. That was very exhaustive. I give thanks for that, and give
Thank you,
a lot of more information, because one thing is to read it on the paper and one thing is to hear it from the original ones that originated and worked to create this process. So at this point, I think that once would have questions like, how is the secretariat structured, so to speak? Is there an executive body? Are there different committees? What is the actual structure which has been designed and with which the secretariat would work? I don't know if Shango Bako or Jabulani want to take on this question. Is for INI is the same, so it's up to the item.
Permit me just to say a bit no, before we hear again from Shango Baku and Ras Jabulani. Now, I am Steve Asher. I give thanks to His Imperial Majesty Emperor Haile Selassie and Empress Mene to be here and to be in the presence of such a wonderful audience in this conference. I am very happy to see faces that I know. Ras Shango Baku, certainly, Ras Flacco, Ras Jabulani, Brother Bongo Wisely. I would emphasize that the Rastafari Global Secretariat Interim Committee, formed in 2016 in Jamaica, has really been thinking greatly on how this Rastafari Global Secretariat could really function. To organize and centralize on a global scale has never been done, as far as I'm aware, by any community or any entity. But we made an attempt to reason and to see how best can organize and centralize Rastafari, who really has reached all parts of the globe, and who find that we have a common liberty, which is not always, the best way that a community should have its existence. We are faced with poverty. We're faced with attempts to marginalize our members, and we're faced with many hardships just because of our faith. And we cannot achieve anything unless we largely decide to cooperate and depend on ourselves. And that is what we want to do. That is how we intended to see the Rastafari Global Secretariat being born as an entity which the worldwide community can rely on for assistance in formulating and working on projects that can lift the community in general out of poverty. Now, to say that, it is easier said than done to really have an entity that can mobilize a community worldwide and have the community cooperate, have our members see the vision that is being outlined. And we in thinking of this entity, we're faced with certain problems. One was how we would mobilize the financing to support the entity itself, and how we would have a bank account which would be, fair and reasonable to the banking system and to ourselves, who would be signatories on the account. We were faced with those practical problems. And that more or less slowed the rollout of an entity in itself that can manage the affairs or help to coordinate the affairs in a positive manner of the Rastafari community globally. Now, as part of the reasoning since 2016 up to present, once suggested that instead of having a particular entity, a new entity, which would contribute to the organization and centralization of Rastafari, that existing entities, organizations do exist, which would not want to lose any of their autonomy, but would want to contribute to the achievement of uplifting the Rastafari community. So, this dog disturbing y'all? Anyway, we felt that, I'm back now.
All right, give thanks, King.
As I was saying, sorry for the disturbance. As I was saying, part of the reasoning suggested that existing organizations which would already have their roles playing be allowed to continue in those roles and simply, cooperate more to help the community, in whichever territory they exist, help the community to uplift themselves from poverty. So that was part of the whole idea when the Caribbean Rastafari organization, who I represent, decided to have a formal working relationship with the Rastafari Continental Council of Africa. You would hear Ras Jabulani mention the Rastafari Continental Council as their attempt to organize Rastafari on the continent, on that scale. So we felt that, we, CRO, Caribbean Rastafari Organization, felt that the RCC, is a good organization with good plans to uplift their community in Africa from poverty and to do projects that would bring about revenue, and income generation, and will help in the liberty of the community members. And we in CRO have a similar mindset, where we would want to do projects, become involved in programs that would help our Eastern Caribbean community mainly, but the Caribbean community in general, including Jamaica, to have some social upliftment. So we felt that it would have been a good idea, all in the lines of a global Rastafari corporation, to have this formal working relationship done with CRO and RCC. Where RCC would already have bank accounts or a bank account have a program that can be built upon. Sierra, similarly in the Caribbean, can have programs that can be built upon. And if we can link members, share ideas of, what we plan, we can have the start of a formal global corporation of Rastafari, which is what the Rastafari Global Secretariat is really all about. Having projects conceptualized and designed as well within specific communities globally, but having, some additional resources that can be made available to help in having the projects being successful. So we find that one way to start the Rastafari Global Secretariat would be to have some formal cooperation between existing entities representing particular regions. So that is, as opposed to having a particular entity, as Shango Baku outlined. We haven't shelved that completely, obviously, but with the problems that we are encountering, or we had encountered with that rollout, we find that at present, since 2019 it was, we have this formal working relationship with RCC, and although it is slow in its actual realization because of the COVID situation last year, 2020, and up to the present, it would be slow in projects and having exchange of members and so forth. But nonetheless, there's that formal working relationship document that we signed, and we intend to build on that as a rollout of the Rastafari Global Corporation and Secretariat, if you want to use that word. So that is just what I wanted to interject at this point in time. Thanks. Give much thanks.
Give thanks, Russ. Give thanks. Yes, for the presentation, and very good, very good. Seems that always more stuff is coming here upon the table, and that is very important in order to bring more light, especially on what is the next stage, I think. So I think we can go forward to my question about how is the secretariat structured, and how is supposed to practically working and functioning in terms of parts of it. I have to notice that unfortunately the reunion is going to stop again in about 5 minutes. We're going to be like this. We're going to have this inconvenience throughout this whole reunion, and so I think that we could start the reasoning, and if Shango Baku or Ras Jabulani would like to answer, and then when the conversation will stop, we just will have to rejoin the panel, and with the same link.